surprising, the energy levels are pretty high. Despite time, I'm going to be the most liberal chair of this session, if you allow me. And I'll do that in the interest of time, because I can see time is not on our side. And I just want to introduce myself. My name is Evan Siaga. I run a company called Delegate Insurance. Delegate Insurance has been out for 17 years. For the past 16 years, Delegate has been known as a motor insurer. And yes, we are proud because that's a good heritage to have, in the sense that motor insurance is one of the biggest risks with a very high capital charge. And if we've been able to navigate that particular space for 16 years, getting into the space that's non-motor now, since the last 1 year, it's going to be a cup of tea for us. And I'd like to mention that we got the license to extend our offering to the full suite of general insurance, starting from last year. And I want to say that we are responsible for disrupting the market. Anyone here knows Bimata? Does anyone know Bimata? Anyone knows Bimata here? Yes. It's one of the most profitable products that we have. So I like what Danny is saying. Digital space is huge. We can leverage technology to change the way insurance is consumed in the market. You're going to make a lot of money. I have seen the statistics provided by my friend from Africa, and motor is one of the biggest contributors for the big losses that companies have been making. But if we leverage technology and big data, definitely we are going to see a bit of a change. And we hope that we can partner to see the underwriting process practices change, so that we can start to understand the behavior of the drivers, start to price accordingly, and we hope that we're going to get there pretty soon. We are testing some of those models, and as Danny has said, our business models have to change. I must mention quickly that I'm not an insurance person. I come from a technology background. My first training is actually IT. That's how I worked with Danny at Safaricom. And I hope that that background and that experience can help disrupt some of the things that we do in the insurance industry. I'm pretty excited. When Danny met me here, he said, you came to the industry and you seem to have settled. I am not settling until I see us change the way insurance is consumed. And I know we can do that. I don't want to claim to be the expert or the domain expert, but as wellness. And since we have a domain expert, I'll not even attempt to do a preamble. That's why I said I'll be a very liberal chair. But I must mention one thing, that one of the biggest assets any organization can possess is people. So the wellness aspect of I hear myself somewhere. The wellness aspect of our people is critical, and I guess that's why we have Dr. Tasmin Albai. Again, extending my being liberal, since all of us have a notebook and we have a program, I could do justice to time by avoiding going through the whole profile of Dr. Tasmin, if you allow me, so that I save you some minutes. Yes. But I must be quick to mention that Dr. Tasmin is a leadership and performance and wellness coach, and she's going to be our presenter for the next session before we get to the very final session. I'll come right back after she's done to again pick a few questions from the audience, and then we will conclude that session. Dr. Tasmin, let's give her for.
Thank you. Thank you, Evans. The last two presentations were really fantastic. Really, I really enjoyed. Okay, so at break time, Alice, the deputy chair here, Alice was saying, we've got to be out by 2, and I think it's 10 past 2. And I don't know, I just got this text today. I mean, you're talking about Safaricom, Need cooking gas? Order your K-gas from Rubis on M-Pesa app and get free data bundles. I guess everyone benefits from this, right? Okay, so let's get a bit interactive. What comes to mind when you see this picture? What comes to your mind when you see this picture? Yes? Sorry? Fakeness? Okay. What about fakeness? Tense? What about fakeness? Yeah, the mask is masking the person's real emotions. How often do we see this in organizations? And let me just make it a bit real. I was speaking to Evans over break, and he was saying that, him being the guru in the matatu industry, they took on an initiative on checking the driver's eyesight, right? Because that they found that was leading to accidents and so on. And they found that 30% of these drivers really had vision issues, yeah, and that was really leading to some of these accidents. But how about how many accidents are caused? Let's just bring it a bit real. Are caused by these matatu drivers, bus drivers, right? Who sometimes are not even conscious of the number of hours that they're driving on the roads, especially our Kenyan roads. Many of them on stimulants. And when you look at them, they look okay, but there's something else happening behind that mask, right? And then we wonder, why are there so many accidents? So Evans, yes, there is the eyesight thing, but there's also the mental wellness, agenda happening here. People may look very, very functional, right, in our organizations, even in our families, even people close to us. They may look very functional, but many times they're not okay. Yeah? And when people are not okay, what is the outcome? What happens to productivity also in organizations, right? And that's where I would like to really drive this conversation to in this session. There's a story behind this. Actually, I was in your industry, right? And when I decided to start that's why I see some very familiar faces here. And being in the corporate world, I was seeing, being in HR and so on, I was starting to see something very interesting. That organizations are actually a breeding ground for psychopathologies, right? And that really took me on a totally different path, right? And I went into coaching, especially leadership coaching. And the more I coached leaders, right? Boards and was sending their CEOs and executives to me for executive coaching, on topics like, for example, managing conflict, communication skills. They were struggling with interpersonal skills, conflict management, delegation, and so on and so forth. But in those conversations, I was starting to see something else, right? I was starting to see things like, worry. A lot of these executives, managers, CEOs, coming with anxiety and worry, yeah? Addictions, right? I mean, we have Chiromo Hospital here. I can see that. I can see it here. A number of them had already been to rehab many times. And these are individuals who are running departments, running organizations, yeah? Being addicted to sleeping pills, gambling, and so on. Breakdown in relationships, struggling in their marriages, struggling with their families, yeah? Loss of interest at work, in themselves, insomnia, not being able to sleep, low self-esteem. And believe you not, even men break down in tears in these coaching sessions. Right? And that took me on a journey because yes, I had a background in psychology, now I was a coach, and I realized that I needed to go a bit deeper with individuals in organizations. And so I went back to school and finally got my doctorate in clinical psych. Because I noticed these things coming up, right? Psychopathologies, and as a coach, it wasn't enough for me. So mental wellness and mental health is so real. in our world today. Let's talk about some data, right? There's a lot of research on mental health in organizations globally. Kenya is starting to get involved in a bit more research. I'll share with you some of the research that I conducted in Kenya. But really, let's talk about what is happening in the world in this space. So, we spend 90,000 hours or 50% of our waking hours at work. And in Kenya, I'm sure it's more than this, because by the time some of us leave home, right, sit in traffic, work, and by the time we get home, it's even more than 50%. In a 2021 study in collaboration with the Harvard Business Review, the sample was 1,500 respondents in 46 countries in various sectors and seniority levels, where 67% were at or above supervisory level. 89% found that work life was getting worse. 85% reported that their well-being had declined. 62% experienced burnout, and I'll share with you this whole aspect of burnout as well. 55% struggled with work-life balance. 25% were unable to connect strongly with family, colleagues, and friends. They're withdrawn. 21% reported that they felt pretty good. And I think there's one more data point, like 2% said that, life was excellent. I think these are the people that are taking spaceships up in, very far up. This is interesting. Work-related stress and depression or anxiety statistics in Britain, 2020. The total number of work-related stresses, anxiety or depression added up to 828,000 in 2019-2020. This is a prevalence rate of 2,400 workers per 100,000 workers and significantly higher than the previous year. So it's going up. Stress, depression, or anxiety was responsible for 51% of all work-related ill health cases. Some of the main factors reported that was linked to work-related stress, depression, or anxiety were increased in workload pressures, tough deadlines, additional responsibilities, and lack of support from their managers. And interestingly, the survey also indicated that COVID-19 did not appear to be the main driver of these changes. So this is even before COVID. The American Psychological Association, APA, on the Work and Wellbeing Survey in 2021 found that those who typically felt tense or stressed out during the workday, 71% intended to seek employment outside their workplace. Job-related factors that impact stress levels at work, right? Increase again from 2019 to 2021, low salaries, too heavy of a workload, and unrealistic job expectations, right? 56%, 50%, and 48%. Involvement and communication related factors that impact stress levels at work. Again, you can see an increase from 2019 to 2021. Lack of participation and decision making. We may think that this is, so lack of participation, this autonomy, right? When I did my research, the literature review that I came across during my research on stress in corporate Kenya, I found that autonomy, somebody not having the ability to have control over their job or a say in their job, was one of the highest psychological risk factors at the workplace. Problems with my supervisor, right? I'll show you some statistics, the impact of supervisors on mental health of the supervisors. Yeah, I'll share that with you in some other slides. Problems with my work, with my co-workers. Yeah, these interpersonal relationships that are so important because we spend so much time at the workplace. Having this support system at the workplace becomes so critical and important. Yeah, but many don't experience that. And you can see like nearly 43% are saying the impact of problems with their co-workers and 44% problems with their supervisor, right, are affecting their levels of stress. This one is interesting, especially for your industry. So the green bar is for administrative, managerial, professional, or desk work. The blue bar is work that requires manual labor, and the red bar is work related to customer interaction, entertainment, sales, and other service-oriented work. So these are really frontline and so on and so forth. Look at where the highest bars are, the red, right? And this is so relevant to your industry because most of you are all from the CEO down to, every worker in your organization, you are frontline, right? Look at what frontline individuals experience. 53% physical fatigue, just tired. Yeah. Cognitive weariness, 44%, where you lose focus, you can't think clearly, struggling with making decisions, right? Emotional exhaustion, 40%, just emotionally tired. Your mind is just exhausted. Yeah. 45%, in the past month, mental health and physical problems kept me from achieving my goals at work. 45% of most people in your industry said that it was mental health that affected their work. 41% physical. Yeah. And my employer provides its employees with adequate health insurance. 70%. Yeah. Here's another statistics. Again, the blue bar, upper level employees, the green bar, middle level employees, the red frontline workers, and the black individual contributors. Right? 67%, the red bar, have experienced negative impacts of work-related stress in the past month. And 35% have felt fed up quite frequently or more often in the past month. This is all at the workplace. Okay. Work-related stress, what is it, right? The International Labour Organization, ILO, acknowledges work-related stress as a global threat to workers' health and to the health of their organizations. This contributes to nearly 50 to 60% of absences at work. So even when people are saying, my back, I went to the doctor for a backache, or I have a cold or a flu, right? It's indirectly linked to stress, high blood pressure, even diabetes. The ILO reports that excessively long work-related hours contribute to the deaths of 2.8 million workers every year. The correlation with excessively long work-related hours and deaths. In the United States, work is the leading cause of death. Why? Because of the consequences of stress, right? Things like maladaptive coping, common mental health disorders. These are depression, anxiety, and substance use, physical health, and suicides. Let's come closer home, right? At a conference in 2019, they cited that 36% of work-related illnesses in Kenya were due to stress. We have Chiromo here. Dr. Jenga is actually the guru who led this task force, right? The Task Force on Mental Health in Kenya in 2020 found that at some point, 1 in 5 Kenyans will suffer from a mental illness in their lifetime. But it gets even more interesting, right? Mental illness is a cost to the country where it was responsible for 13% of the total disease burden. And at the same time, the budget allocation for mental health was less than 0.1%. Now, look at that inconsistency. When the task force went on the ground, Kenyans responded that apart from not having sufficient information on signs and symptoms of mental illness, and not knowing the difference between mental health and mental illness, they were exposed to high levels of stress, where one group cited stress due to lack of employment, and another group citing that stress at the workplace, where the managers were responsible for the stresses. These are Kenyans telling us. So for my thesis, I really wanted to study stress in corporate Kenya, and I wanted to, the group that I really wanted, I was trying to figure out which is the best group to work with, and that can even create awareness on mental health in corporate Kenya. So my study population was senior human resources professionals in Nairobi metropolis, right? And my topic was the prevalence of work-related stress and common mental health disorders, which is anxiety, depression, and substance use. These were my findings, and very, very correlated with global statistics as well. So I found that 88.6% showed elevated levels of stress. 88.6%. There was a correlation between, a strong correlation between work-related stress and anxiety, worry about the future, anxious about the jobs. A strong correlation also, also found that 54.2% were anxious. Right? There was also correlation between work-related stress and depression, a very strong correlation. Where individuals found, like, for example, 44.3% minimum range, 14.9 borderline clinical depression, right? Severe depression, 8.5, and extreme depression at 1.5. So, the data is speaking for itself, right? So if certain individuals in your organizations are experiencing this, the likelihood of, people generally in your organizations are also experiencing this. Okay. So burnout, yeah. It's actually a pandemic in organizations today. It really, truly is. Yeah. And when we see, for example, I was talking about the matatu drivers and so on, it's burnout. Apart from, the eyes, it's burnout. Burnout, WHO has finally included burnout in the International Classification of Diseases ICD-10, okay? And it is identified as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by 3 dimensions, yeah? Feelings of energy depletion or exhausted, just feeling tired. Waking up in the morning saying, do I really have to go to work? Can I get another couple of extra hours to sleep? Can I leave early? Just feeling exhausted. An increased mental distance from one's job or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to the job, They are there, but they are not there. They're detached, they're emotionally disconnected. and they're just there paycheck to paycheck because their job is not meaningful anymore. And reduced professional efficacy, right? Their performance starts to drop significantly. Now, this definition is important because it acknowledges that burnout is more than just an employee problem, because the organization has a lot to do with employee burnout as well. It's an organizational problem that requires an organizational solution. Right? So burnout actually starts, there is a certain level of stress that is very necessary, use stress that keeps us motivated, that keeps us energized and so on. But what happens is when stress is not managed, when we're not aware of why am I starting to feel this way? Why am I getting tension headaches? When we stop becoming aware of ourselves, right? Over time, it starts becoming chronic. And that chronic stress then leads to burnout. So are we really listening to our bodies? Are we noticing the people around them that, this person used to perform so well? What is happening all of a sudden? He looks tired, he's coming to work late. Are we conscious of the people around us and changes in their behaviors? At the workplace, 6 main causes of burnout: workload, perceived lack of control, when people feel they don't have control over their jobs. Yeah. It causes anxiety, right? And eventually stress. Lack of reward or recognition. Poor relationships. Lack of fairness. A values mismatch. Yeah? They don't feel that the values of their organization match their values. And millennials have the highest level of burnout due to less autonomy. We just had a presentation where we was talking about millennials. They're a whole different breed, right? And when these smart, young individuals who understand this world today better than any of us, when they come into organizations, many individuals start to stifle them because they feel threatened. And because of that, these millennials feel I'm not wanted, I'm not needed, and they leave. Lower seniority, and they actually have many financial stresses as well, right? Because they are always on technology, they have peer pressure at this stage as well, and so on and so forth. And a lot of these millennials feel, oh, by the time I reach 25, I've arrived. And by the time many of them have reached 25, the reality starts to hit them. And that's where the anxiety and so on and so forth also kicks in. Loneliness is huge, actually, very, very huge. Loneliness in itself is a killer. And there's a lot of studies and research going on the impact of loneliness on mental health, suicide, and death. I love these constructs, technostress and telepressure. It's actually constructs. And I think it's self-explanatory. This thing, yes, it's part of us. And yes, it's, we'd rather take this than our wedding rings, But it is the cause of anxiety and mental illness if not managed well. Social media, there's a lot of research against the correlation between social media and depression and anxiety. Yeah. Are we managing this? Yeah. Are our children able to manage this? Because they say the largest rates of suicide are between the ages of 18 to 34. And a lot of it has to do with this. Right? Telepressure. Many countries now have laws that your employer cannot get in touch with you, whether it's on email or phone after 5 p.m. Because you have to stop at some point. France, I think France, Sweden, some of these European countries, it is illegal to send an employee an email or any kind of communication after 5. Yeah. Leadership and its impact on stress, right? 23.8 billion annually is lost in the US due to abusive supervision. Just managers and supervisors and leaders just abusing the people. Gaslighting, making people feel that they're useless, these microaggressions, ignoring them, not making them feel like they belong. Right? Because it has an impact on people's mental health. And there's a cost to it. Absent workers cost employers in the US 150 billion per year, just due to absences. Those who came to work and were not fully productive, there's a word called presenteeism. Presenteeism is workers who are there, they're present, but they're not there. There's a word for it. It's called presenteeism. It's a proper word. You're there, but you're not there. There's also a word called quiet quitting. You heard of quiet quitting? People will only do what they have to do, no more than that. A study conducted by the American Institute of Stress, which found that after including factors such as absenteeism, turnover, diminished productivity, increased medical costs, and increased legal costs, the total economic impact of stress to US employers was estimated to 300 billion annually. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Because look at what it must be costing you and your organizations. Do we put a value to this? Stigma and mental health. There's a reason why people shy away, from sharing what they're experiencing in terms of mental illness, right? So there's a public stigma, and this involves the negative or discriminatory attitudes that others have about mental illness. People shy away in organizations to be vulnerable and say, look, I have this issue, I need help. And there's so much chatter on this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion, this DEI stuff that we're constantly listening to today. Are we inclusive in terms of mental illness and mental health in our organizations? That it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay for you to experience this way, because these things make us human. But you know what? We're here to help. We have solutions for you. The self-stigma. People who experience mental health issues refers to the negative attitudes, including internal, they feel shame. They feel shame that I'm experiencing this. And so they will shy away. The institutional stigma. This is very systemic, involving policies of government and private organizations that intentionally or unintentionally limit opportunities for people with mental illness. Do we start labeling them? Are they marginalized? When we see people, even substance use, we say, oh, this guy comes to work drunk every day. And we dismiss them, we laugh at them, we make jokes about them. But there's something deeper. Something deeper happening. Do we care? So stigma not only directly affects individuals with mental illness, but also the loved ones who support them, often including their family members. Let's start rethinking this whole thing around mental illness and mental wellness in our organizations, even in our own families. This is a very interesting model on work stress. It's called the Palmer, Cooper, and Thomas model, very popular by especially the health and safety executive, that a lot of organizations, especially in the West and Europe, abide by. It all starts with culture, right? And I know earlier someone mentioned Richard Branson, and I just saw like a really nice, comment that he made. That, we start thinking about culture, and culture can be as simple as how can we start treating one another? Can we start treating one another with compassion, and so that they have a sense of belonging? Because it can be as simple as that, and culture can make it as complicated. Right? But this model is very interesting because it takes into consideration the job, the demands on a person's job. Right? If the demand is a lot higher than the work that they're doing, of course, it's going to trigger anxiety and stress. Control, autonomy. Does this person have at least some level of autonomy and control over their job? Support, these are the relationships at work, right, that are so meaningful and so beneficial because we are at work for more than 50% of our time. Our roles, do people really understand what the role is, the job description, what it entails? Because research has also found that when the roles are very vague and gray, yeah, they start feeling anxious. Relationships, right? And how do we manage change? Now look at the impact, right, on the employee. When these factors are not taken into consideration, it can lead to individual symptoms such as increased blood pressure, sleep and gastrointestinal disturbances, increased alcohol and caffeine intake, increased irritability and negative emotions, back pain, tension, palpitations, headaches, and eventually coronary heart disease, right, respiratory illnesses, depression and anxiety, and burnout. At the organizational level, right, there's increased sickness absence, this culture of long hours, increased staff turnover, reduced staff performance, reduced staff morale and loyalty, and increased hostility, this incivility in organizations where there's bullying and so on. And what is the result to the organization, right? Increased overheads, reduced profits, increased accidents, and increased litigation. There's a cost. How many of you remember this? Sorry. I had to turn down the volume because so that there's no echo.
Ababa, killing all 157 passengers. European Airlines flew passengers on a Boeing 737 MAX plane on Tuesday, but opinions are split regarding its first flight using the model since a crash nearly 3 years ago. In March 2019, a flight to European Airlines
Technical.
flew passengers on a Boeing 737 MAX plane on Tuesday, but opinions are
Sorry, I know it's past lunchtime. Anyway, how many of you remember this? Sorry, I need to now turn on the sound. How many of you remember this MAX 737s dropping off the skies, right?
Yes.
Do you remember? I think it was 2018, 2018. Yes, more than 100 people, yeah, died on the Ethiopian Airways one. I think there were 38 Kenyans, right? And all these 737 MAX falling off the skies, right? And I wanted to find out what was happening, what was the problem with these Boeing aircrafts, right? And when they dug deeper, they found out that it was the culture at Boeing. They put profits before purpose, right? They had a new CEO, and all he wanted, his line of sight was just on profits. So even when it came to listening to his technical team, who were red flagging and alerting, he was not willing to listen. Right? And when I did the research on this, one of the pilots actually said that he asked another pilot, "Would you put your family on a MAX 737?" And the pilot said, "There's no way I would put my own family on a MAX." So why am I saying this? Is look at culture. So you know we've been here for 2 days. You're going to think of strategies and ways to do things and so on. But culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you cannot get our culture right, how people are feeling, yeah, that has an impact on the productivity, that has an impact on innovation in your organizations, right? Your strategies are not going to be as effective as they're meant to be. Yeah. Okay. This happened to me last year as well. Okay. We'll get to lunch eventually. This one I give this on. This is another video which is very interesting. Yeah. So I'd like to bring in this topic on social pain that happens so much in our organization. When we hurt someone emotionally, right? When we ignore them, when we don't treat them right, it's called social pain. And the neural pathway for social pain, emotional pain, social pain, is the same pathway for physical pain. So when we emotionally, indirectly sometimes, the microaggressions at the workplace, when we hurt people emotionally, you might as well hit them. You might as well have hit them because the neural pathway for pain is the same. So look at how much hurt and pain sometimes there can be in teams and organizations. I'll send this video over to you. You'll send it to all the participants. You can have a look at the research done on social pain. It's a really interesting video that I'm sure you'll send to all the participants. So let's try and be a bit more conscious of noticing signs and symptoms of mental health issues at the workplace, around us, in our families. There's a really interesting documentary called The Bridge I don't know if you've seen that documentary. Yeah. I want to share it with you because it's so important in terms of do we really notice what people around us are really going through? The bridge is a documentary in San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, very well known for people taking their lives. So researchers and psychologists wanted to understand behavior. What happens to individuals just before they jump? So it's a very disturbing documentary, by the way. So what they did was they put cameras on the bridge, and over time they started noticing, right? Some people would come to the bridge, they would look down, think, go back, and never come back. Some would come and jump straight away, right? Some would come to the bridge, look down, think about it, go back, come back, think about it, go back, come back, think about it, and jump, right? Because they wanted to study behavior just before suicide. But they wanted to extend this a bit further. They wanted to find out those people who came to the bridge and never jumped, what stopped them from jumping? And of course, it was a proper psychological experiment, ethically and so on. They found that the people who came to the bridge and never jumped again, that they said that it was just that someone listened to what I had to say. Someone just asked me how I am, right? Somebody just listened to me. So it was just one individual reaching out to another that stopped them from jumping. And they found that with suicide, people are trying to tell us something, but are we really listening? They send silent messages, whether it's in our families or whether it's in the organizations. But they are trying to tell us that I want to take my life. They say it in such a way, but our lives have become so complex and so busy, we stop to even empathically really listen to the people around us and what they're really trying to tell us. So notice these things, right? If you're finding changes in work habits, for example, all of a sudden, lack of motivation, lack of focus, decreased productivity, behavior changes, right? Moods, restlessness, worry, irritability, anger. Yeah. Now this is misbehaving. Frequent absences at work. It's not my day. Recurring complaints, I'm feeling tired, I can't sleep. Are we observing all this, right? So I think I shared with you the HSE, the 5-step stress risk assessment that focusing on assessing, and addressing major hazards in the organizations. I shared this with you, right? So how do you stay ahead of the game? Yes, you have all these lovely, ways that you're going to, penetrate and so on and so forth. But for you to get there, our people is what is going to take us there. They are the ones who are going to take us there. Yes. Yeah. So how do we stay ahead of the game? Yeah. Here is something that came up from LinkedIn, the Global Talent Trends in 2022. And it's called a human-centric company. They're asking for flexibility. Of course, this hybrid, the ability to work from home and so on and so forth. Right? Diversity. Yeah, this diversity, equity and inclusion. They want more variety in terms of people, in terms of types of tasks that they can do. Trust. Yeah, there's a whole 2-day lesson on trust, workshop on trust. And what are these behaviors of trust? Yeah? Because trust is something that's out there. It means different things to all of us, right? What does trust look like in an organization? What are these trust behaviors? They want a sense of belonging, right? This oxytocin, this sense of attachment that they have for their organization. Holistic focus on well-being. This is where the mental health is coming in. Yeah? And they're finding a lot of individuals globally, before they join an organization, they're asking, do you cater for mental health? Yeah. Percentage of professionals selecting these as top priorities when picking a job. 63% said they want a work-life balance. 60%, of course, compensation and benefits, that is so important also for well-being. Yeah. And 40% of individuals said that culture was very important. So, areas to invest to improve company culture. 59% said professional development opportunities, growth. You know, when people are growing personally, right? It has an impact on their mental well-being. 48% said flexible work support. And 42% said that mental health and wellness is very important to them. 35% said our managers need to be trained, right? And 26% on diversity and inclusion. And believe you me, these young professionals that are coming into the workplace, diversity and inclusion is becoming very critical for them as well. Finally, so, you know, there are 8 basic universal emotions: fear, anger, disgust, shame, sadness, hurt, and excitement, joy, and trust, right? When individuals are feeling fear, anger, disgust, shame, sadness, and hurt, right, it leads to stress. And the hormone that triggers stress is cortisol. Okay? But when individuals in your organization, where there is trust, excitement, wonder, and joy, right? They feel attached. And that's where the growth, innovation, and all the good things that your industry wants to get into is where it will happen. Yeah? Because where there is excitement, joy, and trust, where people feel they belong, you know, all the good neurotransmitters and chemicals, dopamine, where there's pleasure and reward, serotonin, where people start feeling good, oxytocin, where they feel they belong and where there's trust. So my question to you is, what is running in your organizations? What are the chemicals running in your organizations? Is it the cortisol, the stress hormones? Or is it all these wonderful good hormones? Right? That is going to take you to the next level that I've been hearing of today, because it's all about your people. And there's a link between, you know, between the good hormones and profitability, productivity, innovation. There is a correlation. So what is running? What is running in your organizations? What is running in your teams? What is running in your families? So it's time to rewrite. It's really time to, you know, rewrite the script. But I also want to share with you, look at the impact that your industry can have in wellness, right? How many, I don't know, your policies, does it include mental wellness for organizations and individuals? How many policies actually do that? And there is a growing need, because mental illness, I mean, we've seen that the data speaks for itself. The jury is out there that this is another kind of pandemic. And I remember working in your industry, it was 2007. I mean, we all know what happened in 2007. And there was this sense of urgency to come up with which policy? Which policy was it? Huh? Political violence, right? Why is there no sense of urgency for this pandemic in your industry? Because you play a critical role in this. That is why people cannot access mental health. So this is really my challenge to you from a mental health perspective. I'm urging you to think about it and do something, because stress in organizations, the data is out there, the jury is out there, right? Organizations may be feeling helpless because there is nothing that they can lean on in terms of providing good mental health care for their employees. And this is where your industry really comes in. Yeah, so this is really a cry for help to your industry. Yeah. I think I'll end with that.
Let's give the carry of month that I want to recap what the carrier said again in the interest of time, but I've made a lot of notes. I want to trust that you are good students. Isn't it? But the one thing that I must mention that has struck me today, as a CEO, we're so fixated on the top line and the bottom line. I've never, at any one point in time, sat down to look at the relationship between the wellness, the mental wellness, and the bottom line. Today, it's come very clear. In fact, I propose that Daktari should do this session with the board of directors, with CEOs, the top management, the shareholders, to be quite honest, because you might be driving every day these expectations to the employees. There's a cost benefit to it. I mean, they are not at work or they are present. Now I learned a new word, presenteeism. They are at work, but they are not being productive. It doesn't help the business. So I think this is a very wonderful session for me. I try to thank you for giving us such wonderful insights. And one more thing that you must take home is Haja Eats strategy for breakfast. I knew at that point. Today I know it also exists for lunch and for dinner. Amazing stuff. So without further ado, may I take only 2 questions so that we can move on to the very last session of the day. 2 questions, quick questions, please. I know it's past lunchtime, the energy levels are a bit down, but you still can ask a question. I have some time for you to ask a question. The first 2 people. All right, I'll take it that Daktari was very clear in her presentation, and I'll ask you again to put your hands together and give it up for. All right, so we'll get to